Hello, my lovey. Welcome, Joy du Jour. We are talking about navigating the healthcare system and its complexities with the fantastic Dana Sherwin. Dana, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate being here.
So I love the way your mind works because you like to get all of the research in and see what the science says. And we were talking about how in healthcare, it's terrifying. Like your life is literally on the line. And to be able to have grace and ease, it feels sometimes that that's not the place to go because you're fighting to have good care. So what do you say to that?
Well, it took me a very long time to figure out sort of the skills and the strategies you might need to not only take care of your health, but communicate better with doctors. And I had a whole profession in the healthcare industry. I was a professional healthcare administrator, and I had worked in many different types of settings, hospitals, associations, managed care. And I, of course, was focused on how to create organizations that delivered great services to people and
Right.
responded and make the patient experience as good as possible. And it was a very intense career, but I thought I was doing very valuable work and really didn't focus on what I needed for my healthcare. So
Ah,
when my health crashed, that's when I really learned. And I don't think they're insider secrets. I just think
okay.
that it's really such a difficult, complex process that people aren't really given the education
Right.
to communicate better with doctors and take care of
I
themselves. So
completely
that's what I like to focus on.
Yeah, I totally get that, and that's the same way that I feel we're very undereducated as far as doing our taxes. I was a tax preparer for decades, and it shouldn't be scary. It's just it's not scary. Uh, but there's just a lot of rules, and if we can be taught long division, why can't we be taught how to navigate these, systems, whether they're the tax code or the healthcare system? Knowing, of course, everything.
Absolutely. And I think people have to want, yes. And I think people have to understand that it's important that they play a very large role and that they engage in their care. So that's sort of the fundamental, one of the fundamentals is that when you engage in your care, you have better health outcomes.
Love it.
This is proven through research. You engage in your care, you do whatever you can to do the best, to do the best for yourself. And it's not about, oh, always advocating for yourself. It's not a negative connotation. What it is you need to bring you to the table as much as you're capable of, your mind, your body, your story. That's so important to bring to the table and let your healthcare provider, your doctor, or whoever it is that you're seeing, let them know your story and your background so that you can meet together.
Mhm.
That's usually how diagnoses are made because the doctor really needs to, more than a physical examination, the doctor needs to rely on the information you're going to share about who you are, how you live your life, what's hurting you, how to express yourself about what kind of either pain you're in or what your medical history has been. You need to bring that all to the table, not just when you meet a new doctor, but doctors are so busy these days. You need to bring your story each and every time you meet with a doctor, whether it's the same doctor or a new specialist or a specialist that you see every 6 months. You need to bring them along in your journey so then they can impart their specialty and their
Right.
expertise and their experience to the table.
So let me
Because
ask you, how so they're
Mhm.
pressed, like you said, they see gobs and gobs of patients all day long, what the medical practitioner that you're going to visit. And so, like, do we do an like work up an elevator speech of,
Mhm.
30 seconds just to kind of have a synopsis of our health history? Or, how do you do that?
Great question. And I think it really all starts in being prepared for appointments. So part of that preparation is knowing what your priorities are. As you mentioned, limited appointment times. You're lucky if you get 20 minutes, usually
Right.
15-minute meetings with the doctor. And the doctor's feeling that pressure too, because if they're meeting you for the first time, right? So it's very important that the patient prepare for the visit, whether you use it in written form or digital form. Write this down the day before or in preparation a week before, what you want to accomplish, what your priorities are, what your questions are, and then in a synopsis kind of way, what your medical history has been, either bringing records with you or giving your doctor access to digital records, or you may be
Right.
in that health system already. But that preparation is so important. And it gets easier every time you go see yet another doctor and another doctor when you have a method to prepare. And in fact, you're writing these things down. It sticks in your brain much better, like what you wanted to ask the doctor. Because one of the things that happens is and the medical industry is very familiar with this term, it's called hand on the doorknob questions. It's when the visit is
Oh,
almost over and, oh, doctor, one more thing, one more thing. Well, that is not a good place to be in an appointment or getting your questions asked. Probably better if you have so many questions and a limited appointment time. Doctor, we haven't covered all of the questions that I have. How best to communicate with you in between visits? Some doctors
yeah.
like texts, some email, some through the patient portal, whatever that method is. It's really good to know. Well, I have 15 doctors. They each like to communicate in a different way between appointments. But when you know that and you keep record of that, how do I communicate with this doctor in between? And how do I communicate when it's urgent? Or whether
Oh,
it could wait, a few days, or it could wait a week. Like, you just need to have this sense, because you're not going to have all your questions answered
oh,
at me.
no. Especially in complicated medical situations that are requiring multiple doctors and a lot of different care.
Mhm,
As things develop and
mhm,
unfold, you'll read something that, advocates for some certain diet or, this kind of activity or, something like that. And so to have a method, I think that is an excellent point. To have a method to communicate with your medical staff, because like in my medical system where I happen to be, like I can send them a message through the portal. Someone will get back to me within 24 hours. It might be, one of their staff or, whoever it is, but they will ask me more questions, or, say, okay, well, I can set up a phone call with the doctor if that's necessary, because I deal with a lot of mental health things. And so you mentioned, like, is it a crisis? That's critical information, or am I just kind of bumbling along? I know I can do better and feel better, and I'm reaching for that. So I think that owning your part of this relationship, and it is a relationship, they're there to serve you and help you, and you can help yourself by being clear, by understanding, and really honestly sharing. Don't fudge on the numbers. Don't say that you work out every single day when you're like, do yoga once a
mhm,
weekend or
mhm,
like
mhm.
really be honest with yourself and with your medical practitioners.
And you raise a very important point about the being honest, because the research has shown that a very significant part of the population withholds information from doctors. Whether you've had a long relationship or a short relationship, people do not want to share how much they smoke, how much they drink, if they do drugs, what their sexual health is, lifestyle kinds of issues. These issues are very they're called sensitive topics, and sometimes the physician or the physician's practice will have a questionnaire that addresses it through a questionnaire. But if this is not brought up or discussed, it's not likely in a general way that people share this information. However, depending on what's wrong with you, you may react in different ways depending on how you lead your life. Even if, let's say, people who drink a lot of diet soda that has a lot of caffeine in it, if you're not revealing that information and you have something wrong, with a cardiac condition or breathing. I'm not saying that diet sodas are related to any of these things.
No, no,
Clearly,
no.
I'm not a clinical professional, but it all contributes to the doctor understanding how you live your life day to day, what comes into context with your physical being.
Yes.
And so it gives the doctor more information to work on, so that it could either lead to other questions or reveal, different things. Somebody who's been drinking a lot of caffeine and all of a sudden, I want to change and improve my life. And then all of a sudden has headaches all the time and goes to the doctor saying, oh, I'm having headaches. If they don't say, well, I used to drink a lot of caffeine, the
Right.
doctor won't be able to connect the two, right? Unless the
Exactly.
doctor has had other patients who've gone through that.
Right.
But that's just a very small example of what could happen.
Exactly. Whereas if you,
Mhm.
led with that, then they could just be like, okay, we'll have half a cup of coffee or, whatever your caffeinated beverage is for a couple of days and, or like help you wean off of
Mhm.
it because it's scary, especially a headache, your brain's in
Right.
there, like that's life or death, and when a lot of people
Mhm.
when they wean off of caffeine or if they just stop cold turkey, they will have headaches. If you're not familiar with that, my dear viewer and listener, that's what we're talking about. Well, this has just been incredibly informative. So, as we're reaching the end of our time together, I just want to like broadcast your message left and right. Please comment on these postings and let people know how to get in touch with you because this is such a valuable area. Do you have any final words or suggestions for people? This is awesome stuff, Dana.
I think it's also about educating yourself. Like if you get a new diagnosis, it's important for you to do research so you understand because having the language of your diagnosis is really important to you being able to take care of yourself. And then also is something I like to tell everybody, there are patient communities for particular disease specific conditions, right? So there are a lot of patient communities, and to get connected, that's what I did related to my chronic illness. I connected immediately to a patient community that was also a research foundation. So I knew about the latest things that were going on. I knew about how people were trying to help their quality of life. So I think that's important. Also, I try to share the different issues that I think people would be interested in terms of engagement in health and communicating better with doctors on my LinkedIn. I do regular posts so that people feel free to look and see what else might be interesting for them and what might be helpful to them in terms of being engaged in their care, because ultimately it will help to improve health outcomes for you and also for for loved ones and family members, that you can be part of the sharing of this information which isn't always talked about.
Yes, yes, and
So
I love
I'm happy to be involved in this.
yeah, talking about it. Talk to your teenagers, even your kids. Like if you think they're not old enough
Mhm.
to understand, you can still say, I'm going to ask the doctor questions so that I really understand what's going on with my body. We can get that. And they can understand like, oh, okay, that's why we're
Mhm.
here. It's because of this vessel. Yes, love it. Oh, and I wanted to ask you, communities. Obviously, there's a lot of online communities on Facebook and such. You mentioned yours was at a research facility. How did you connect with them?
So I had Googled, my disease, and it came up with this foundation. So I found it very early on. This was over 20 years ago, and they've just grown and expanded. And it's just an amazing community. And really are communities like this for every disease category, even for people with undiagnosed disease, people with rare diseases. So there are these communities, and they're also sort of trusted sources. I get this question a lot. People say, oh, don't Google because you don't know what's true and what's not. But trusted sources of healthcare information, really important. So most large academic medical centers have this information online. And then there's the NIH and there's Medline and there's WebMD. So sort of trusted
Yeah.
sources that you could go to check out. And whenever something new comes up for me, because I have multiple things because of my chronic disease, that I will go and research more than one site just to check, am I getting all the information I need? And also to then come up with the questions that I will then put in my notebook to then ask my doctor. So the research to learn more and get more familiar, have the language, be able to express it, have the questions, again, all in my notebook that I use to be engaged in my care and get my questions answered. And also, most importantly, figure out what you don't know, because that's where you learn the most. What do I know versus what I don't know? And I think that doctors who see that you're so engaged in really trying to help yourself, those doctors are the ones that most enthusiastically respond to your interest to help yourself. And I have found that to be true across the many doctors I've seen over the past 20 years. So doctors will respond enthusiastically to patients who show that they want to work in partnership with their doctors on their health
I
care.
love that. Absolutely love it. Thank you, Dana, for joining us today, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay, nice